The word bad. Do bad things happen to good people? What exactly is the answer?
Of course.
Of course. What kind of question is that? They actually, I mean, the famous book, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? So we're not even asking, do they happen? That we take for granted. We just want to know why, right? But tonight, let's think a little more correctly on the subject. What exactly does the word bad mean? What's bad? Of course, anything you don't like is bad. Any person you don't like is bad. But what is really the definition? Like, for example, an operation is bad? No. An operation is very good. Unless
You don't make it.
it was supposed to be on the other patient. Or on the other leg. Then it's not good. Is pain bad? Not necessarily. Labor pain is not bad. False labor, that's bad. Is death bad? Not necessarily. Wrongful death, whatever that is. If it's wrongful death, oh, that's bad. Right? The true meaning of bad, at least the way we understand it from a Torah perspective, bad means something that should not have happened, that happened. If it's not supposed to happen, and it does, that's bad. But anything that is supposed to happen, even if it's painful, even if it's disappointing, it's not bad. It hurts. But that's not what bad means. So, bad would mean that something happened to me and it should not have happened. Now, if I was asked to decide what should and what shouldn't happen, how would I know? How would I know what should or shouldn't happen? If before God created the world, and you came and asked me, should God create the world? I would have probably said, no. What for? So I got to share with you this very quick story. I was flying to Argentina to speak years ago. It was a miserable flight from Minnesota to New York to Miami to Buenos Aires. When I finally arrived, I was miserable. Couldn't sleep on the plane, just completely miserable. What happens, the shliach there picks me up at the airport, takes me to a hotel, I sleep it off, recover a little bit, and then I'm ready to work. So sure enough, he picks me up at the airport, and we're driving to the hotel. On the way, he says to me, by the way, there's a woman who suffered a terrible tragedy. She has been very depressed, hasn't left her apartment in 6 months, refused to talk to anybody. But when we told her you were coming and we pressured her, she agreed to talk to you. So we're going to stop at her house on the way to the hotel room. I was not very happy about that. First of all, what do you say to a woman who's severely depressed? Go talk to her. You go talk to her. What do you say to a depressed woman? And secondly, why didn't you ask me? You went ahead, you made the arrangements, you made the appointment, you didn't ask me. And it has to be on the way to the hotel? Can't be after the hotel? I was very, very unhappy. But she's expecting us, so I have no choice. We gotta go. We come in, and this woman looks like she had died and was never told. No life in her eyes, no life in her voice, no color in her face. Very. And she tells me about the tragedy. 19-year-old son was driving home from their summer cottage to come back into town in time for slichas. Got into a car accident. 3 other boys in the car survived, and he didn't. And then she tells me how special he was, how respectful, how considerate, how kind, how wise, how mature. An amazing, amazing description. When she finishes, what could I say? So I said, that's an amazing boy you had. And you had him for 19 years. She was not impressed. So I said, I understand the shock. Out of nowhere, a healthy boy, suddenly he's gone. The shock is horrible. But imagine if God had come to you in advance. No surprises, no shock. If God had come to you and God would have asked, I'm looking for someone to be the mother of a really special kid for 19 years. And he asks you, will you be his mother? What would you say? And I was sure that she would say yes. She says, absolutely not. So now I have no idea what to say. So without thinking, I said, well, then it's a good thing that he didn't ask you. The flood of tears opened up. She suddenly had a good cry for the first time. I mean, crying like you've never heard. And after 20 minutes, she was back to life. She was alive again. I literally saw a woman go from being dead to alive. Tchias HaMesim, in front of my eyes. It was the most meaningful, the most emotional, the most amazing experience in 50 years of talking to people. Now we're back in the car, going to the hotel room. And I'm thinking, I was angry. I was upset. Why didn't you ask me? And if they had asked me, what would my answer have been? Absolutely not. And it would have been the wrong answer. I would have missed out on an incredible experience. Most of the great things we do in life were not asked. Like, how would you like to get married and take care of somebody for the rest of your life? No thanks. How would you like to have a few challenges in life? No thanks. How about some difficulties? How about some tests? No thanks. We would be so, I mean, if God would ask us and take our answer seriously, we would be such useless creatures. We would amount to nothing. So we have to thank God every moment, every morning at least, for not asking. Don't ask me, because I'll only embarrass myself with the wrong answer every single time. So something can be necessary, important, and painful. If God asked us, we would say no. But it isn't bad, it's just painful. Now, this fine distinction, what's the value of this? So bad means something that shouldn't have happened that happened. Well, first of all, If bad means something that shouldn't have happened, then nothing bad has ever happened in history, and it can never happen. Because we believe in one God. We don't have two gods. So anything that happens comes from one God. So if God is doing it, then it was meant to happen. Unless you believe that there's a good God and a bad God, and the bad God makes things happen that shouldn't happen because the good God doesn't want it. This is not kosher. In God's world, how can something happen if it shouldn't? What, the Satan did it? So nothing bad has ever happened, and nothing bad will ever happen in God's world. Why then does the Word exist at all? There's one exception. In my free choice, because I have bechira chafshi, I can choose what I shouldn't. So the only thing bad in the world is a bad choice on my part. A human being can choose what he shouldn't. And that actually is the definition of free choice. What does free choice mean? You can choose the right thing or the wrong thing. When you choose the wrong thing, you shouldn't have done that. That's bad. So that is very encouraging. In God's world, nothing will happen if it shouldn't. Because what would make it happen? What would make it happen? But there's another important point. People who fall apart, whose lives fall apart, they get nervous and broken down and they can't function. It's never from the pain. It's from the thought that something that shouldn't happen happened. Well then, what else is going to happen? If there's no rhyme or reason, then how can you live? Anything can happen at any time for no reason? That is depressing, that is paralyzing, that's overwhelmingly frightful. You never know what's going to happen for no reason? You can't live like this. So when people really collapse after a difficult experience, it's not from the pain. Because you see, two people have the same pain. One is depressed from it, and the other is kind of inspired by it. So it all depends on how we define what's happening. One final point on this subject. If we know that pain is not bad, it's supposed to happen. It's meant to be. If we know that it's meant to be, do we then become comfortable and it doesn't bother us anymore? I go upstairs to the maternity ward in the hospital. There are women crying, screaming in pain. Doctors and nurses are walking around as if it was a picnic. Can't you do something? No, it's labor pain. She's in labor. But she has long labors. She has long labors. That's it? That's the extent of your compassion? See, here's what happens. If I know why there's pain, it stops bothering me. People would come to Elie Wiesel, and they would ask him, why was there a Holocaust? And of course, what do you expect him to know? Because he was there? So of course he says, I don't know. But one time he came up with a brilliant insight. Some guy comes over to him and says, why? Why was there a Holocaust? And Elie Wiesel said, I'm sorry, but I can't tell you. He says, you know why, but you can't tell me? He says, that's right. So What does that mean? Why can't you tell me? He says, because if I tell you, you'll become a Nazi. The guy says, what are you talking about? I'm Jewish. How would I become a Nazi? This is how he explained it, and it's perfectly true. You're asking me why there was a Holocaust because it disturbs you. The thought that so many Jews suffered and died disturbs you, it hurts you, it bothers you. So you're running around demanding an explanation, a good explanation. Now suppose I have a good explanation. And in 15 minutes, I will tell you why there was a Holocaust. And you're going to like my answer, because it's a good one. And now you're going to say, oh, so that's why. Okay. You see, you've become a Nazi. If an explanation takes away your pain, you're not a nice person. For many people, bad things happening to good people is upsetting because it's injustice. It shouldn't happen. Now, you don't have to be very sensitive to complain about injustice. Every kid says, that's not fair. You don't need a neshama, you don't need to have a good heart, a Yiddish heart. You don't need anything special to complain when something is wrong. But what if you know that it's not wrong? A woman is in pain because she's having a baby, there's nothing wrong, don't worry about it. Her pain doesn't bother you? That's not nice. It's not Jewish. So we don't ask, do bad things happen to good people? Bad things don't happen. So now you're happy? No, I'm Jewish. How can I be happy? If I see pain, I can't. Oh, but it's okay. There's a reason. It's meant to be. Fine. But it still hurts. But it still hurts. How can you not feel that pain? Like, for example, God comes to Avraham and says, the people of Sodom are exceedingly evil, I have to kill them. Avraham argues. What are you arguing? You see that it's meant to be. God himself tells you, this is meant to be. And you're arguing? What are you arguing? If it's meant to be, let it happen. Go for it. The thought of people suffering is supposed to bother us. Not because it's an injustice, but because it hurts. A famous story about two guys are in a hospital room. They both have gout. You shouldn't know from it. Very, very painful. One of them is a guy who trains to be able to tolerate pain. What is that called? A stoic. Goes to special training to be able to tolerate pain. The doctor comes in to examine him, and he touches his foot, and he turns it and presses it, and for the first half a minute, no reaction. But after that, the guy screams in agony. Then the doctor goes to the next patient. Takes the foot and he presses it and he squeezes it and he turns it. Not a sound. When the doctor leaves, the first guy turns to the second guy and he says, where did you train? Where did you learn to tolerate such pain? He says, train, pain. What are you talking about? I'm Jewish. I gave him the other foot. We're not into pain. We object to pain, not only our own, others also. So, summary. Bad things never happen. Nothing ever happened without the Eibishter planning it, because who else could make something happen? But Pain exists. Pain is real. And for that, we daven 3 times a day that he should take away the pain. Whatever reason, whatever justification there is for the pain, isn't it possible to achieve the same thing without the pain? Obviously, we're talking about our own pain. Chocolate number 2. What is hashgacha prati? God runs the world. But no, he runs the world on every detail. Let me tell you what that means. We have this podium, and there are 3 microphones on it. If God said, let the podium disappear, what would happen to the 3 microphones? Obviously, they would all fall down. Not correct. Hashgacha prati means that everything that happens has its own instruction. If the podium disappears, because God said podium disappear, but he didn't say microphone fall, the microphone won't fall. So hashgacha prati means nothing happens incidental to something else. Like, for example, the wind blows a leaf during autumn from one side of the street to another. It's by divine plan. The leaf needed to go from here to there. Why isn't it enough to believe God created the leaves, God created the wind, and when the wind is blowing, it moves leaves? That's avodah zarah. Then you're saying that the wind makes things happen. And that's not true. There's actually a beautiful story. When the Jews made the Egel, Moshe said to God, Lama Hashem yechere abcha ba'amecha. Why are you angry? And God said, what kind of question is that? I just told them not to make graven images, and they went ahead and made a golden calf. What do you mean, what am I angry about? So Moshe said, no, what's so terrible to show a little gratitude to a cow who gives milk? So they were showing gratitude to a cow for their milk. So God said literally these words, Moshe, you too? A cow doesn't make milk. I have to make the cow, I have to make the milk, and I have to make the cow give the milk. The cow is nothing. So Moshe said, see, so that's what I'm asking. What are you angry about? They bowed to nothing. A cow is nothing. Nothing happened. God said, let there be cows, so now there's milk. No. God had to say, let there be a cow, let there be milk, let there be 2 stomachs, let him chew its cud. Every detail of the cow is a separate creation. Which means this. You believe that your marriage was meant to be. Has to. Has to. No marriage ever happened by mistake. Every marriage was meant to be. God stays up all night making shidduchim. No shidduch happens by mistake. By the same token, you got divorced. It was all meant to be. I was in Colorado years ago in Denver, speaking to this mixed group. It was conservative, reform. It was like a community thing. Anyway, whatever I said that was probably very brilliant, for about an hour, I was introduced as, at that time, years ago, as being the father of 11 children. I spoke for an hour, and as soon as I finished, this woman raises her hand. She says, 11 children? She didn't hear anything after that. I said, yes, 11 children. With a straight face, she says, do you know that some people don't have any? And for a moment there, I felt really guilty. Like, you chazer. You take 11 for yourself and leave others with nothing? Weren't you taught to share? But only for a moment. And then I realized that you can't have somebody else's children. You can't. But wait a minute. If I can marry the wrong person, am I not having the wrong children? This is not really my wife. This is somebody else's wife. And I'm having children with her? This is wrong. So obviously, if you can't have the wrong children, you can't marry the wrong person. Of course, if you marry a non-Jew, that was not meant to be. That's freedom of choice. And for that very reason, it's not a marriage. They don't need a get. It's not a marriage. Every marriage is divinely orchestrated. So every divorce must also be. Because let's say you get married a second time. Come on, there's got to be a plan here. There was a first spouse, there's now the second spouse. All this is part of a plan. But when you get divorced, for whatever reason, your children will suffer. And why will they suffer? Because you got divorced. How can you not feel guilty? Okay, fine. You messed up your own marriage. That's your business. But what did you do to your kids? That's what Hashgacha Prati tells us. Whatever your children are going to go through, it's not piggybacking on your destiny. That's their destiny. So they're not suffering because you got divorced. They have their destiny. God has a plan for them. And this is what they need to handle. Which means they can handle. And they will handle it. Because it's all part of their hashgacha. So we're not allowed to believe that one thing happens piggybacking on something else that God caused. Well, let's put it in another way. Do you ever think of this? God, as old as he is, has no grandchildren. Ever think of that? Your child is not his grandchild. Like, you're God's children, right? We are God's children. So our children are his grandchildren. No. They are as much his children as you are. So why should your experience determine their fate? They have their own relationship with God. They have their own hashgacha. They have their own nisayon. And this is exactly what they need to experience. It's painful? Yes, it's painful. Is it bad? No, it's not bad. Let's talk about something completely different. Another chocolate. This chocolate is a sweet chocolate. Love. If you need love, don't get married.
Now you
If you're looking for love, don't get married. If you need love, go home to your mother. And if she won't love you, I'm sorry. If your own mother can't love you, where are you going to find it? So you do without. If you're looking for love, don't get married. Now, obviously, this goes against everything that our culture preaches. Love is everything. Love is the purpose. Love is the tachlis. Love will keep us together. It's not true. It's not true. The idea that love is the most important thing in life, that's such a Hollywood invention that you have to laugh at it. It's so silly. Love is not important. Here's what love is. Someone who is important in your life, for whatever reason, but someone important to your life, you should love. So love is the appropriate emotion for those people who are important in your life. So if somebody is important in your life, like your sister, your parent, you ought to love them. If you don't love them, they're still important. On the other hand, someone who's not important in your life, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, not important, but you love them very, very much, they're still not important. Because if you think about it, it is so absurd. You are the most important person in my life because I love you. When I stop loving you, you're dirt. You're worthless garbage. That is so arrogant. My love makes you important? What is, I have the Midas touch? My love can make things important? Come on, that is so arrogant, it's absurd. How do we convince little boys all over the country that the brother they hate is much more important than the dog they love? Because they don't think so. I was once talking to this 11-year-old kid who was having problems, and I just tried to figure out what's going on in his head. I said to him, if you came home one day from Little League, and you have a baseball bat over your shoulder, and you walk into the house, and your father and your dog are killing each other. They're fighting, they're killing each other. Who are you going to hit with your bat? You know what this very intelligent, highly moral 11-year-old kid said? Depends who started it. Come on, is that not sensible, moral, just? This kid is sick. No wonder he's got problems. He doesn't know the difference between a father and a dog. So love does not make anything important. You love chocolate, since we're talking about chocolate. You love chocolate. So is chocolate important? It's not important. And that's why you should never even use that expression. I don't love chocolate. I enjoy chocolate a lot. Love doesn't apply here, right? Tevye asks Golda, do you love me? Remember? She says, for 25 years I washed your clothes and that was something. What was she saying? She was saying to him, what happened to you? What, did you become a teenager again? You want to know whether I'm giving you love? I'm giving you me. For 25 years, you have me. You're worried about love? Grow up. So what she's saying is, what's important in a marriage? Not what you get from your spouse. Your spouse. So we should make a bumper sticker. Nothing you get from your spouse can be more important than your spouse. Nothing about your spouse can be more important than your spouse. And of course, the same thing is true with children. There is nothing about your child that can be more important than your child. And we know this from God Himself. There is nothing about a Jew that is more important to Him than the Jew. Af al pi shechata Yisrael. Bein kach u bein kach bonayim. Don't tell me how gifted, how talented, how wonderful, and how frum Jews are. It doesn't really make a difference. A Jew is precious because of who he is, not what he is. Let's open another chocolate. I was in Israel for Hanukkah a number of years ago. We live in Minnesota. It's a very religious, non-Jewish city. At this time of the year, there are a lot of bulbs. You can't imagine living here. You can't imagine what it looks like when every house on the block. So for Hanukkah, once in our lives, my wife and I went to Israel for Hanukkah. It was a machaya. Every light you saw, you knew it was a menorah. So on the fourth night of Hanukkah, we're walking up a street in Mea She'arim. It was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. All the shops were closed. Everyone was busy with their menorah. And they light it all outside, in front of the door with the little boxes, with the chimney, everybody's running with their candles, with their oil, with their... Beautiful. It was Hanukkah. You felt it. So we're walking up the street, and all of a sudden, a troop of soldiers are coming in the opposite direction. Double file. They're on their way to some danger spot. They're wearing bulletproof vests. They're walking through this street, through this neighborhood, as if they were walking through enemy territory. The tension was so thick, it literally ruined our whole trip. After that, like all the enthusiasm was, what is wrong with us? What is going on? They're going to a danger spot because during Hanukkah they're on high alert, and they're going to protect you so that you can light your menorah gesundheit without worry. And you can't say Chag Sameach to them. Really, you should stop and give them the menorah, let them make the bracha, let them do the mitzvah, and then they'll go on their way. But okay, I'm not expecting that in Mea She'arim. But say something. Say come home healthy. Say God should protect you. Say something. On the other hand, here's a group of soldiers risking their lives to protect these people that they're walking past. Can you say something to them? Say, don't worry, we'll take care of you. You'll be safe. We're going to the front. Nothing. And the tension was horrible. So after that, I'm walking around thinking, what went wrong? So the thought occurred to me that back at the beginning, in the late 1800s, somebody had a dream. And the dream was, you see, Jews are having a very hard time all over the world. Let's get them all together into our own little country. But think of this. Jews in Russia. Now, Russia is a huge country. Huge. Jews in Russia did not get along with each other. The Ukrainians didn't get along with the Russians. The white Russians didn't get along with the other Russians. They didn't get along. In Poland, Jews didn't get along. They were the Galicianer, they were the non-Galicianer. Now, Jews from Poland and Jews from Russia, forget about it. Then there's Hungary. And then there's the Romanians. What is the Theodor Bikel once said, what is the difference between a Hungarian and a Romanian? They'll both sell their mother, but one of them will deliver. We didn't get along in big countries. So some guy thinks, you know what, let's all get together in a tiny little cramped country. What are you thinking? What is wrong with you? How in the world is this going to work? Like the survival of the fittest? Whoever remains standing wins? What were they thinking? So then I realized they were thinking that the reason Jews don't get along in Russia and in Poland is because some Jews are Ukrainian and some Jews are Russian. Of course they're not going to get along. Some Jews are Polish, some Jews are Hungarian. They're not going to get along. Let's put an end to this. No more Ukrainians, no more Polish Jews, just Jews. If we were all just Jews, of course we would get along. No? So they said, come on, let's all go back to Israel. No more Ukrainian Jews, no more Hungarian Jews, just Jews. It'll be wonderful. It's a good idea. So what went wrong? Sad to say, there are very few Jews in Israel. Because I did a little survey. I stopped people in the street and I said, excuse me, what are you? And this guy said, Dati. Stop another guy, what are you? Haredi. What are you? Chiloni. I said, aren't there any Jews here? What happened to the Jews? So instead of being Ukrainian, you became Dati. Instead of being Polish, you became Haredi. Instead of being Czechoslovakian, you became Chiloni. What happened to the Jews? It was funny. I stopped one guy. I said, excuse me, what are you? He says, Jewish. I said, where are you from? He says, Cleveland. We need to go back to being Jewish. No more of this stuff. Stop with the titles. Stop with the... It's horrible. It's horrible. A Jew is the best title in the world. You don't need to embellish it with anything. Less is more. If we could go back to being Jews, which is really what we are, and we don't need to be anything else, we could really get along. Wouldn't that be nice? Let's open one more chocolate. One of my favorite topics. How is it that Jews are still here, still Jewish, when other nations much bigger, stronger, richer are gone? The simple answer is this. What do nations want? Every nation wants to preserve itself, to continue existing endlessly. So they build fortified cities, they gather huge armies, they collect wealth to support them forever, and they're going to guarantee their own existence. And they're gone. They don't exist at all. We had a different approach. Before we came into Eretz Yisrael for the first time, what did Moshe Rabbeinu tell us? He said, let me give you a picture of what's to to come. You're going to settle in your land of milk and honey. But it's not going to last. You'll be thrown out. You'll be scattered to the four corners of the earth. You'll be reduced to a fraction of your number. You'll be living in other people's countries. They're not going to like you. You're going to be tortured. You're going to be thrown around. You're not going to know from one day to the next whether you're coming or going. A horrible description in the Teichacha. The Jews must have said, like, why are you telling this? Why are you telling us? And what are we supposed to do about this? Moshe said, what I'm telling you is that your existence is not going to be good. So forget about existing. Get busy living. You be busy living. Existence, forget about it. What is the difference between living and existing? Existing means taking care of my needs. Living means finding out who needs me. What am I needed for? So existence means what do I need? Life means what can I do for you? Avodas Hashem, ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. What it means is, if the Eibishter, if God needs something from me, I'm available. Hineni. So whatever you need, tell me, I'll do it. 613 things? Fine. I'm serving. And as long as I'm serving God, if the community needs something, I'll serve them too. And if my wife needs something, I'll serve her too. I'm in the serving mode, not in the existing mode. And here's the amazing thing. If you're busy living, your existence takes care of itself. So we were never trying to exist better, and yet we exist. They try to exist perfectly, they don't exist at all. So look at our history. For most of our history, we barely existed. And in the times when our existence was down to a thread, we were so alive. When did we produce the greatest tzaddikim, and the greatest talmidei chachamim, and the greatest svarim, and the greatest tzedakah systems, and when we barely existed? And even today, we barely exist. Ask people in the UN. They never heard of us. There's no Jewish country in the Middle East. But what do they talk about every day in the UN? How much trouble we are causing. So for a people who don't exist, we're making a lot of noise. But that's our gift. We learned to focus on life rather than existence. And that's why we still exist. Like a doctor in the time of a plague, he doesn't get sick. How come? He doesn't get tired. He doesn't need to eat. He doesn't need to sleep. What is he, Superman? It's because he is so alive. It is so obvious that he is needed, that he is serving, that he is fulfilling his life, that the existence takes care of itself. Once the plague is over, it's going to catch up with him. But you see, the more alive you are, the less your existence bothers you. But if you only exist, you're going to get depressed. It's depressing. This is why we say l'chaim before we take a drink, which is kind of strange. Because l'chaim means to life. It's like a little prayer. L'chaim, to life, I don't want to die. What, you have to say that every time you take a drink? It's not that dangerous. You should say l'chaim when you get on a plane. What we mean by l'chaim is not, I don't want to die. L'chaim means I choose life over existence. Like Shabbos. What are we not allowed to do on Shabbos? Anything constructive. Why does that make sense? One day out of every 7 you can't do anything constructive? The idea is constructive means what it takes to make your existence more comfortable. The Eibishter says to us, 6 days of the week take care of your existence. But 1 day out of the week, stop it. Leave your existence alone. Whatever you have, it's good enough. Whatever you bought before Shabbos, that's what you got. You didn't buy it, you don't have it. The light is on, so it's on. It's off, it's off. Leave your existence alone. It's fine. Focus on who needs you. What are you needed for? Spend 1 day focused on life. That's what we mean by l'chaim. L'chaim means we prefer life over existence. We are good at living. We're not so good at existing. Why do we say that when we take a drink? Because what happens when a person gets drunk? Any idea? Ever read anything about that? What happens is you relax, right? The drink relaxes you. What does it relax? It relaxes your needs, your awareness of your needs. When you're drunk, you don't take up so much space. You don't need room. Like, how do you know a guy is drunk? If he's still standing up. Because when he comes over to talk to you, if he was sober, he would stand over here. Well, in South America, it's over here. But in America, they stand here. When he's drunk, he stands here. Because he doesn't need space. Like 9 drunk guys on a couch. A couch made for 4. But when you're drunk, you don't take up space. So 9 drunk people can be comfortable on a couch made for 4. So what you say is like this: I am going to relax my existence. My needs, whatever they are, I have plenty, it's enough, it's good enough. I want life. I want life. L'chaim. I'm going to relax my existence because my life is far more interesting and far more important. This is so crucial to marriage. Because when you get married, the first thing that happens is that your existence is destroyed. Your existence is wrecked. You don't have a place of your own. You don't have space of your own. You can't go, you can't. It's horrible. Under the chuppah, we should make it very clear. Harei at, you are my chosen one. Only you can ruin my existence. Why? Because together we can make a life. So yes, ruin my existence, but let's have a life. So getting married is like saying l'chaim. If you're still trying to defend your own needs and your own existence, don't get married. When your existence is whatever it is, okay, enough already, time to get on with life, get married. So the simple test is this. When you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, if you find the face in the mirror fascinating, don't get married. You're not ready. But if you look in the mirror in the morning and you say, oh, you again. Enough already with you. Okay, now it's time to get married. So, marriage means I want to give up my existence in exchange for a life. So you should never get married and then 3 weeks later say, I'm feeling a little cramped. I need more space. No, no, no. You gave up your existence. That's the definition of marriage. You gave up your existence in order to have a life. Kabed esovicha ve'esimecha. Right? Make your parents' life, your parents' existence a little easier by serving them, carry their bags, whatever. What happens then? Kabed esavicha ve'esimecha, so that you will live. By giving up a little of your existence, you get a life. So now, what is the meaning of Am Yisrael Chai? It means, if you want to know what Am Yisrael is, very simple answer. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael is Chai. We choose life over existence. So we should all have good news very soon. We should report to each other, I got good news, my existence has been ruined. I found somebody and they can ruin my existence all they want because we're going to have a life together. If you're ready to do that, we will have a lot of good news. Thank you for listening.